When you hear the terms unemployment rate, poverty, and race, it sounds like you're hearing a straightforward concept you can base a discussion on. But what you don't know is, these terms don't actually mean what you think they do. Government and media have slyly worked together to frame American political discourse by using language in a way aimed at convincing you to get on their side about controversial issues, rather than actually communicating facts. Does it sound unbelievable that the American public could be misled so easily? Let's look at some concrete examples. There's the unemployment rate. The Bureau of Labor Statistics uses two surveys, one of households, the other of businesses, to determine the unemployment rate. Just determine the number of potential job holders and the number of actual job holders and do a little math and you've got the unemployment rate, right? Not exactly. Do you count inmates in jails and prisons? How about people who do temp work, or those who work 10 hours a week, or those on furlough? Do you count people who are only passively looking for work? How about people who have completely given up looking for work? The answers to those questions determine the unemployment rate, or I should say the unemployment rates. The government actually has 6. Right now, the unemployment rate that's usually reported to the public looks pretty good, 4.9% as of this recording. But when you calculate in the people who've quit looking for work, it's pretty bad. So when you hear people say that the unemployment rate is rigged, well, it's complicated, but they do have a point. The poverty rate? That's even worse, because the poverty rate is largely arbitrary. By setting the criteria, the definition of poverty, bureaucrats can make the poverty rate as high or as low as they want and get away with it. I'm not saying there's no such thing as poverty. Poverty exists, but beauty and ugliness exist too. Imagine if someone reported that this month, the number of beautiful people in the U.S. increased from 10.1% to 10.2%, a difference of 1 person in 1,000. You'd say that's nuts. No one can make such a determination, especially down to 1 person in 1,000. Yet that's the sort of thing the government does with the poverty rate. Poverty exists, it just can't be scientifically measured. So the government produces numbers that are a combination of sociology and baloney, and those numbers are used to determine the amount of spending on government program after government program. Over decades, bureaucrats have actually raised the poverty line, typically by about 1% a year after adjusting for inflation. Thus, people you've never heard of, who were never elected by anyone and aren't accountable to anyone, get to decide who's eligible for government programs based on income, and who gets government subsidies, and how much those subsidies are, on Obamacare, for example. And they make a lot of other decisions that were supposed to be done through the democratic process. And there's the big one, race. A total scam. Racial categories were created to oppress people, and that's how they're used today. They have no basis in science, no basis in cultural anthropology or physical anthropology or genetics. Even the American Anthropological Association, which was largely founded to promote racism, admits now that it's nonsense. Yet our government and our academic institutions and our politicians are obsessed with putting people into categories that make no sense. You can say that there's one race or many thousands of ethnicities and subcultures, but if you try to put people in a small number of categories, say white and black and Latino and other, or white and people of color, or any similar scheme, well, you're just making it up. People from Syria and Lebanon used to be classified as white. People from Ireland were called black. Jews from Europe were considered a mentally deficient race, according to the so-called science of the day. And the Latino group, combining people whose ancestors came from Mexico, Brazil, El Salvador, Cuba, the U.S. Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, and many other places, people who have very little in common with each other, that seemingly ancient category was actually concocted by the Census Bureau when I was in college. Carcinogen, renewable energy, inflation, and assault weapons are all much more complex than they seem as well. Next time you hear one of these terms or any other suspicious concept, listen carefully and make sure you're actually having the conversation you think you are. If we're going to move forward as a nation, we need to concern ourselves with facts, not words that are, at their heart, meaningless. It's not the unemployment rate that's important, it's the number of people who don't have jobs but want them. It's not racism that's important, it's bigotry towards any group based on meaningless physical characteristics. If we can think objectively, we can start to fix the problems plaguing our world. But in the hands of the Washington bureaucracy, ill-defined terms become things of wax to shape as they please. If you liked this video, please click the link on your right to our website, subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. I'm Dr. Stephen J. Allen. Thanks for watching.